buried right here, dudes, it's just the absolute pits. When they didn't return and the alarm bells were set, and if we go for a short walk down this aisle here, Yarrawee Creek, would have brought many a miner to the district back in the day. You will die down there. And they did. That would have been possibly one of the most horrific things to ever happen. What's happening, everyone? Just want to tell you a short story. And it's a sad story, but I'm going to share it with you guys anyway. It's a story about two little girls. Two little girls by the name of Elizabeth Davies and Effie Hill. This firehouse plays a little part of the story. Mostly that fire bell up there. The year was 1902, January 8th. That fire bell up there rang out. And it rang out for a really shitty cause, to be honest. It rang out to gain the attention of local people, to try and amalgamate and congregate the locals, to try to find two missing girls. Elizabeth and Effie had gone missing. Now, not far from here, there's a creek. It's just a little bit down the way. Just down the road there's a creek that runs through a valley, and they've been down there mucking around with cows, doing chores, playing as kids do, and they failed to return home. So when the bell rang out of the firehouse, not only this firehouse, but the next neighbouring town across called Buninyong, the firehouse bell rang out there also, and it rang out because they needed some help off the locals. They really wanted to try to get together before nightfall really kicked in and try and, you know, bring these two kids home. Now, what they found is, let's say it's upsetting. And even now, 123 years later, it's still upsetting. We're on Albert Street, Sebastopol. So Albert Street is known as being the lower part of Australia's first road and the oldest road in the country. It's in like the top 3 or 4. So the history on this road is pretty phenomenal when it comes to Australian history. And you would think it would have become a major city, but it really hasn't. As busy as it is only a thoroughfare heading into Ballarat. Ballarat is a city about 1 hour out of Melbourne, and at the moment we stand in an area called Sebastopol. So I hope I haven't confused you with too much information, but Sebastopol is where we're currently standing. Albert Street is the road. The firehouse where the bells rang out is the Sebastopol Firehouse. I'm going to go for a bit of a drive now down to the creek where Elizabeth and Effie were playing, and let's just walk and talk down there a little bit. Come with me. Beautiful Yarrawee Creek. Just bring you up to speed a little bit with Yarrawee Creek. Now, Yarrawee Creek is the main creek that runs through the centre of Ballarat. So it runs north-south, comes from the north, travels south towards the ocean. I'm not actually sure where it leaves. It's a pretty little creek, in parts it's a pretty little creek. It's also part of the stormwater system, so I wouldn't advise you to drink it or swim in it. Have a look at this part here. Beautiful little bit of serenity, little waterfall trickling across a little river wash there. You can see why back in the day the miners would have really flocked around stuff like this. This would have been a literal gold mine back in the day. When I say back in the day, I'm talking gold rush, 1850s. Now, it brings me to my next point. Sebastopol, where we are now, is home to some of the biggest mines in our history and, well, literally some of the biggest mines in the world to date on record. This was the epicenter of global mining, and with that brought a lot of people here. And that brings me to the story of Elizabeth and Effie, as though, look, it sort of happened much later on, so after the initial gold rush and after the pro-mining companies had really got developed in this district. When I say pro companies, I mean $1 million companies. You know, guys with fob watches, top hats, looking all proper, turning up on stagecoach setups. You know, they have the whole royal entourage with them when they turn up to inspect their mine. I'm off topic a little bit. I'm just trying to paint a picture for you guys about Sebastopol and what it was and what it became to be. Now, gold seems to like to hang around near creeks, near valleys, and those who could not afford to do a proper mine setup and, you know, have the whole gold-plated entourage set up, they were just frolickers, and they would just be a couple of mates that would just sink holes and sink shafts and just frolic for gold. You know, alluvial gold was what they were looking for. And this whole area here has got the remnants of that activity, yeah? People just turning up with a pick and a shovel and just going for it. Now, as the years have gone by, they've realised that we can't have these open holes in the ground everywhere in these parks, areas, facilities around towns. They're dangerous. So the shires and councils and powers to be fill them in. But if we rewind the clock to 1902, that was not what was happening. What was happening back then was everyone was still out for themselves, nothing was really in place, and there was mine shafts everywhere. Now, on this said morning, on the 8th of January 1902, when these two young girls didn't come home, it's said that Effie was to fetch the cows for milking, whatever that means. Now, Albert Street and the firehouse is probably, I'm pretty fit, probably a 8-minute jog from here, 15-minute high-pace walk. It's not really far, and back then, if we eliminate the housing that separates us now, it would have been a very straightforward trip, yeah? I don't think a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old in the middle of the day to come down here with cows, probably in a district where they knew people anyway, I don't think that that would be as unreasonable as it probably seems in this day and age. So for them to be down near this beautiful piece of creek, you know, to fetch said cows, really doesn't seem that bizarre. But when they didn't return and the alarm bells were set and a search party go out, a certain somebody came across a fella by the name of Jenkins. His surname was Jenkins. He came across a hat. Now the hat was belonging to one of the girls, and obviously that would have stood out along a trail like this. Forget the fence line, forget the rock work that's put in, you know, we're on this trail, you know, back in the day. Let's paint the picture. The trees are a bit smaller, you know, it's a bit more desolate. And you come across this hat. Now, coming across this hat doesn't mean much. But what does mean much is that when he took a peek in the very near mine shaft, what he found was horrific. What he found was the floating bodies of two little girls. Now, it turns out that it looks as though, according to the inquest which I have downloaded. I'm not going to post it, I'm not going to share it, but public records do have record of the inquest, which is now public property and available to all of us to see. You can download that yourself if that's what you want to do and read the horrific detail yourself. I'm not going to go over that part of it. All we need to know is that there was 2 innocent little girls in the bottom of a mine shaft. Now the mine shaft was listed as 13 feet deep with 7.5 feet of water. That tells me it's around 20 feet deep. If you said your average guy is around 6 foot tall, it's about the height of roughly 3 men deep. Now, children standing up to here aren't getting out of that, right? Plain and simple, they're not going to get out of that. So, we don't know what actually happened, and the inquest paperwork reads that way also. They're unsure whether the little one fell in first, the second one jumped in to try to save. They're unsure whether they've both been frolicking around near the mine shaft and both fallen in at the same time. It does go on to say that there was marks on the side of the shaft like they had tried to climb out or get out. You could imagine how impossible that would be, yeah? Even for a fit, able adult, you're not getting out. Sorry. And you can only tread water for so long. You will die down there. And they did. And that would have been possibly one of the most horrific things to ever happen, not only to the girls, obviously, but to the townspeople of that time. This predates automobiles. This predates life as we know it now. Telephones. Forget all that. We're talking horse and cart, word of mouth, and news travelled quick. The funeral of Elizabeth and Effie was somewhat peculiar, it's noted. It's actually noted that the pallbearers were the students' classmates. That, even today, is a little peculiar. I'm not here to speak that it's unjust in any way. I think it's a beautiful thing. But back then, it is noted as being very peculiar and very heartfelt amongst the community. They'd, as a community, never witnessed something such as that. So, I don't know much more about the 2 girls. Now, I know that Effie Hill was based in Yarrawee Street and her father was Walter Hill. Now, I can't find much more out about what Walter Hill did or anything like that. I did stumble very much on Elizabeth Davies. Now, Elizabeth Davies did not show up on Find a Grave. Her father is noted as being Edward Davies. Now, I searched, when I couldn't find Elizabeth Davies, I started to search Edward Davies, and I thought if I can find his final resting place, knowing that if he had a daughter that passed in 1902, he would be long gone by now, probably by 100 years long gone. I thought if I can find him, I'll be able to find her. But it didn't play out like that. I couldn't find him either. I not only searched Ballarat and its very close districts on Find a Grave, I also started to search beyond, thinking that maybe after the death of Elizabeth, they called her Lizzie, after the death of Lizzie, I thought maybe, maybe he left. He left the country, anyway, I couldn't find him. I ended up going down the rabbit hole to try to find the final resting place of Elizabeth. I ended up going to birth, deaths, marriages and doing a historical death certificate search. And I started with Ballarat being the key place, and within no time at all, 4 hours later, I I find a 12-year-old buried in the Ballarat New Cemetery, where Effie is buried, but the death certificate does not have a grave location. So it was victorious in the way that I'd found that Elizabeth was actually buried there along with Effie. I knew that I needed to make the call to the Ballarat Cemetery to try and get a grave location. So I did that, and here's the conversation. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm wondering if you can help me try to locate a grave at the new cemetery. Is that something you can do? So the surname is Davies.
Yep.
First name is Elizabeth, and then death date should be 1902, around 10th of January, I'm thinking.
Yep, I've got one for that name and date. She is buried in Independent A, Section 10, grave 18.
Is there any way you can text me that or email me that or drop me a pin or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I can email you a map as well.
That would be amazing. I don't know why sometimes that stuff's not on Find a Grave. Do you have a logical explanation?
Now, Find a Grave is volunteer run.
Okay.
So it's not run through cemeteries.
Uh-huh.
But our website should list Elizabeth Davies when you search. So Find a Grave usually uses our services for their information, but they're not run out of our servers or anything like that.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. I mean, 9 times out of 10 it's brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, it can really bump see. You think, well, I know she's there. Why is it not, why is it not showing?
Yeah. Alrighty, I will send that through now.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
No worries. Have a good day.
You have a good day. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. So after ringing the cemetery, guys, I've got a location on where Elizabeth is now buried, and that is fantastic because in this case, Find a Grave let me down. I don't know why that happens. As you just heard the lady say on the phone, it is ran by volunteers, Find a Grave. It is not always 100% true and correct. So there is always that window of opportunity to have it fail you. But we're on our way. We're halfway there. Hopefully she emails across those coordinates and that map and we can go and see where little Elizabeth is now buried. Let's do that anyway. So we've got to head up there and touch base on that. From the death certificate of Elizabeth, I also found, well, it confirmed a couple of things. It confirmed her father as being Edward. It confirmed also too that his profession, he was noted as a miner. Again, this cements in the fact that so many of these families in this district, they were brought here because of this gold, because of the mining. And this is just one traumatic story that's been a chain reaction of events because of that said mining. Now, also worth noting that I could not locate her mum. Her mum is listed as Matilda, and I could not locate a Matilda Davies anywhere. Now, again, I could try to pay for more certificates to try to find her. I'm not going to do that. I did find her father, Edward. He is buried in Box Hill Cemetery in Melbourne. He obviously left town, as most of those guys did when they buried their families. Too hard, too much grief, up and leave. And that's what I would say he has done. It's noted that he died in 1948, so 46 years after he buried his little girl, he's moved on with his life and passed away in Melbourne. And yeah, like I say, he's buried in Box Hill Cemetery. Now, I know that from Elizabeth's death certificate because it has the name. With that name, I could do another death certificate search without paying for it, and it gives me those loose details. If I was to pay the fee, I could actually get the extract of the certificate and find out a little bit more. We don't really need to. Now, again, I really didn't want to have to pay for Elizabeth's death certificate. I had every piece of information that I need. I knew how she died. She had died in a mine shaft drowning accident. I knew her age. I knew the location. The only piece of information that we did not have was where she was buried. And to me, without that, I only had 50% of the story. I'm never going to tell half a story without an end. So without further ado, I think the time's come. We need to go to the Ballarat New Cemetery together. Just first too, now they call this the New Cemetery. It's not really that new. I guess it's new compared to what our old cemetery is, but the graves date back to the same years. We're talking pre-1900. I think the first interments there were like 1856, somewhere around that sort of era. It is old. And that's where we're going to go, right? So we're not going to the old cemetery, we're going to the new cemetery, and we're going to find the final resting place of Effie and Elizabeth. We're going to do that together. I don't really know what I'm looking for. I'm hoping you guys can help me with that. You see what I'm saying? How you can see the... Can you tell what I'm saying here? Look. See the remains of the landside? See the ups and the downs? Somewhere here was where that mine shaft was. It's noted as being between the Yarrawee Creek and the Pyrites facility. Now the Pyrites facility was a big crushing plant on the top of the hill. And the crushing plant was where they used to crush all the ore to try to extract the gold out of very difficult to mine rock. And this is the flats. This is the section that they call the flats. Obviously it's not on the hill, it's not in the creek, this is the flats. And you can see there's not a flat section of ground at all really, but by this rocky landside, you can see, truly see how it would have truly been a miner's life along these areas. And back in them days, man, wow. I reckon there would have been an ocean of hats, them little homemade A-frames with little, what do they call them things, little winches over them little shafts, and they'd be lowering their buddy up and down on a bucket. You'd be hanging off a bucket, you know, hey, let me down, let me back up. Pretty wild times. Ooh, something moved in there. What's that, rabbit? I can hear him. Frightened shit out of me. Look at this for landside. Look. All up through here. Been dug at to no end. You see the old reminiscence of old drainway construction. It's crazy. Anyway, let's go. We're going to the cemetery. Are you coming with me? All right, Ballarat New Cemetery. And grave number 1, in no order of favouritism whatsoever, is Elizabeth Davies. And the lady on the phone, as you saw, was extremely helpful. She sent me a little map with a little pin drop and everything. And I think I know roughly where it is, but that's usually my famous last words. Section 10, somewhere up here is what I'm looking for. We're looking for grave 18. So I'm going to count them off as I go. This is the line here, I'll show you. Down through here. So I'll just count them off, you know, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. I believe it's unmarked. Yeah, isn't that uncanny? Unmarked. It is unmarked. I'm actually not surprised. It's somewhere here. Geez, that's a shame. Look at the state of disrepair on this one. Set up like a little throne. Geez, that's a real bum. Nothing to even remember her by. Incredible. I'm going to look this one up just to find out what number this is. If this is 17, then the one directly beside it here is going to be 18, what we're looking for. Just give me a second to do that. Okay, so I've just looked up John Thomas, who died in 1901, and his grave is numbered as grave number 16 on Find a Grave. So even if I got my count wrong from the road, starting at number 1 and working my way along, which is tough, dudes. Like, you got to remember, like, there's a lot of gaps. Like, is this 2 or is this 1 or... But yeah, if this is grave 16, 17, 18. So we have 1 red flower, well, 2 red flowers, pinky red, and a little purple flower here growing in the grass. But there is literally no remnants of any grave marker or anything even here. Totally forgotten about. And that's really sad, eh? Poor little kid. Yeah, poor little kid, man, to die like that and then just be... They had no money. Like, we've got to put it into context. Like, 1902, sudden traumatic experience in a family, there's no cash. Like, he's a miner. He was a miner, and mum she didn't even have a profession noted on little Elizabeth's death certificate. She was probably just a house mum. So a miner would have been earning literally nothing, like nothing. So I would have thought that the townspeople of Sebastopol would have put a marker here. I know it's not their responsibility to do such, but I feel as though they would have got together to do something, but they haven't. There was a kicker. There's a kicker here. I'm going to read a section of the email that I got from Ballarat Cemeteries. It reads, Elizabeth Davies was buried on 10th of the 1st. That's 2 days after she was found in that shallow mine shaft. But it also reads that also interred there is Ernest Allen Davies, and he was buried on the 25th of the 3rd, 1902. It doesn't tell me any more about this Ernest Allen Davies. I'm assuming that it is possibly a brother, but that is very, what are we talking? We're talking like 2 months later. Literally 2 months later, on the same year, that same family has had tragedy smash them in the face again. Wow. I'm going to do a quick dig as to who this little guy might be. So the information that I have at hand is Ernest Allen Davies, buried right here. Dudes, it's just the absolute pit. 15-month-old. So those poor parents, they not only put Elizabeth here, in March, soon thereafter, they go and put their son here. That's just the worst, hey? He was put here at that same time, which is, let's be real, that's pretty horrific. 15 months old, mate. And no marker. I don't know what else I can tell you. It's truly horrible. Okay. We're just across the road from where Elizabeth is buried. She's just on the other side of the road there. Okay, so here lies Lizzie. And if we go for a short walk down this aisle here, I'm just trying to... Geez, the birds are noisy. I'm just trying to put it into context for you guys so you can see how close They are. Now we are currently in Independent A, that is the section. We cross over the road here, only a very short distance across the road, into the Wesleyan section. And just here under this beautiful old gum tree is where Effie is interred. Somewhere about where that branch is gracing the ground. Now both unmarked, but it just shows just how close they actually are to one another. And Wesleyan D is the section of Effie Hill. Now she's buried Wesleyan D, section 10, grave 48. This is grave 46. So I'm assuming that with this grave here being Watkins, I'm actually really assuming that 48 lies in here. That's another blow to my story. It's also another bit of a blow to my feelings, to be honest, because I'm not seeing what I thought that I would see. Again, I don't know a lot about the life of Effie Hill or her parents or what they were. I found Effie Hill on a find a grave search much easier than I found Elizabeth. Now, it doesn't really mean anything, but what it means is that I didn't have to spend as much time going through names and family histories, and I dug up a lot less on Effie than I did on Elizabeth. So I can't really present what doesn't exist, but what does exist is an empty grave with no marker, and the story really ends here under this beautiful Australian gum tree on this spring day. Two parents along with two other parents, and combined they lose children together. Now, I think that would create an unforeseen bond that nobody would have seen coming. I don't know whether Lizzie and Effie's family, their parents, I don't know whether they were known to one another or whether they were friends in the first place. They may have been close, they may have just been town people that knew of one another through the children. I don't know. But I'm pretty confident that after this horrific event had taken place, I'm pretty confident that those guys would have had some kind of a bond. Now, Lizzie is buried across the road here in Independent. I'll show you guys again. So she's buried over here, just near this brown monument in the Independent section, and then a hop, step, jump across the little roadway here to the Wesleyan section sees the grave of Effie. I feel as though this is not coincidental. I feel as though maybe the cemetery made this situation a little bit more available to the families. Perhaps the families opted to try to do it this way, whether they, where they could keep their denominations yet remain close. So from a religious standpoint, they've stayed true to what they believe in, yet they've kept the children close, yeah? And I don't think that that is any kind of coincidence. I really don't think that it is. They're extremely close in a cemetery that is massive. Ballarat New Cemetery is a beast to get around, and I can assure you that the chance of being buried that close to somebody, especially in two different sections of cemetery, is not, look, maybe it's coincidence. I don't believe so. I'm just saying, I think maybe the parents all got together, perhaps with the graveyard at the time, and maybe voiced their concern that they wanted these guys to hang out in death. They wanted them to be close together. They died together so they could sort of remain together. And although they're not buried side by side, they are extremely close to one another. So it would have been a horrific day that day. I believe they were both buried on the same day. So Effie was interred on the 10th of January 1902, as Lizzie was across the road, same day. I can't go into the super fine details of timing or whatever, but once one child was laid to rest, the second was soon thereafter. So yeah, it was just something that I pondered on, and I just wanted to voice my thoughts on it. I'm not sure whether you guys agree or not, but it's just something that I thought of while I was standing here pondering.
All right, dudes, just cutting in real quick here. I didn't know whether I was going to put this in here or not, but I felt that I needed to. You can grab a screenshot of this, take a photograph, whatever you want to do. This is the location of where these little guys are if you're ever in Ballarat, anywhere near the new cemetery. Pop in, leave a flower, say hello. Let's not forget them too much, eh? Back to the video.
And really, guys, that's a wrap on the whole story. I can't bring you any more than that. It's just another traumatic ending that I can't change. It's really just a closing curtain on a really bad story. Well, it's not a bad story, that's not true. It's a very sad story, and it's a real story. And it's another one of them goldfield stories that will go down and probably be forgotten about, if we're honest. I try to bring stories back to life, and hopefully I've ticked that box, if nothing else. That's it, guys. What you see is what there is. I thank you guys for hanging out with me on this one, and it's a bit of a somber one. But like I said, we brought a little bit of history back to life, reinvigorated an old story, and I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me on this run, and we will catch up on the next run. Bye, everyone.